Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. Let's get right into it. There's been a lot of news about transfers, about future players that United will be looking at in the next few windows during this international break. It's a good time to catch up on it. It's the last international break, actually, believe it or not, before the January window. So technically, there's going to be football every 3, 4, 5 days for United and, of course, for a lot of other clubs. So things are going to get busy over the next few weeks to months after this break. So now's the right time to take a look and say, what are United actually doing in the market? Now, earlier this week, I put out a full recruitment video that I recommend you watch, and I want to briefly run through a couple of the things just to summarize that. Talk about new names that have come up since then, even since then, that United are looking at. Talk about the situation of Casemiro and Maguire, as well as Zirkzee, Kobbie, and a few other players that could be going out on loan, and address their situations as a whole. So let's dive right in. First and foremost, in this video that I put out earlier this week, I did a full big explanation of really the entire recruitment plan from top to bottom, where it's going, what are we looking at next? Obviously, 2 center mids, center back. These are the priorities, but the other positions that United were set to look at as well and kind of revisit once they finish their original plan, which was center mids, center backs, the things they got this summer with the 3 forwards, and that they were set to look again back at things like the wing back position and other young strikers, things like that in the market, just in case, you know, it's not totally up to task as of yet. But they'll look at that later by the end of the window, or I suppose by the end of the season, maybe deeper into the window. And a lot is going to depend on what happens with some of the players we'll discuss in this video. So go watch that, catch up with the whole thing. I won't rehash all of it, but I do want to quickly run through some of the names in case you missed it, so you can be up to speed on where we're at for this. In the midfield, we have the 6s. We have Buati, Yeoman, Yarmouk, Gomez. João Gomez, has been a lot of talk of him recently. More confirmations of United looking at him as a potential obtainable alternative to some of these other names as well in the 6s, especially given Wolves' situation. Baleba, Wharton, and Anderson. In terms of new news on any of these players, I can just continue to say what I said about Gomez, but also on Elliot Anderson, that he's definitely been rising up United's and many other clubs' list, but January is unlikely. However, there are definitely signs he'll be more attainable in the summer. United are going to face stiff competition for any of these players in the next 2 windows, and it is felt that Baleba, Wharton, and Anderson are going to be near enough impossible to obtain during that January window. Very likely ones to look at in the summer. So could any of these others come into play in January? That is a little bit of an unknown as of yet, but United's exploration of those 3 led them to believe not really possible in this January window. Then there's sort of the 8s. There's Stiller. We've heard about Angelo Stiller, unlikely in January. Ederson, been a target for years. We haven't really heard anything recently, so we'll see. Gallagher, we're going to talk about that one a little bit more later and why he might be considered an option, might be the most likely or most available trial option that United might want to take in January, but it's still a bit of an unknown. Then there's Javi Guerra. There's been way too much reporting on him, just somebody that's been on United's register for a bit. Then we go to the center backs. These are a bunch of the names that are on the list. There's Braithwaite, there's Guéhi, there's Ignacio, there's Lukeba, there's Schlotterbeck, there's De Baas. This is unlikely to be something they do in January, except in potentially the case of Mark Guéhi. If there is competition for him, if Liverpool are coming back in the race for Guéhi during January to try and get a deal done there, it may well be United try their hand at competing in that, at seeing if they can. I'm not sure that they will yet compete on that front for Guéhi. I don't know, but he is certainly somebody that they have considered and looked at. And if there's a feeling that he maybe isn't destined for Liverpool in the end, then I think United will want to be around that conversation. Certainly they would like to be able to find some Prem proven. And there are some more names in the Premier League that I'm still yet to fully confirm that I would add to that list that definitely fit the profile of player that we're looking for, as well as the proven aspects. And to wrap kind of that section up, in the midfield, what are they looking for? Not necessarily the exact same dynamic as Casemiro and Bruno, but they want players who are strong on the ball, strong in possession and out of possession. Primarily, this is one of the weaknesses found, and one of the next evolutions in this and why this all ties together in Amorim's team and system is that we get more ball progression out of the players at the back. So we need very good ball players in terms of center backs when you're looking at those names, guys who can pass the ball, guys who can move the ball well, guys who can sit on the ball, guys who can dictate play from the back line, which Ruben has talked about recently. Need a little less passing from the number 6, evading the press, picking the ball up off of the carry, off the dribble, getting out of it and getting it to the wide areas and to the 10s and things like that is really that role. So there's a different, maybe slightly different type of profile wanted than what we're seeing it presently in the team. It's not necessarily just to duplicate what we have, but to get better fits as well. We're doing what we have right now with Casemiro Bruno because it's the best working thing, but that doesn't mean it's exactly the dynamic that they want moving forward. It'll probably be more in line with Ruben's original idea of midfielders in there, hardworking players, but ones who are really good, secure, technical, on the ball, not just about spraying passes around and things like that. So keep an eye on some of those names, and certainly that still speaks to Baleba, Wharton, Anderson. They all fit into a lot of those traits, as well as guys like Gomez and young players like Buwadi and others. So then let's move on to new names, because it's interesting. Since I published that video, there's been a few reports on United looking at essentially those players. And I want to mention that towards the end of the video, I also talked about how wingbacks and strikers would be something they look at. One new name that came up that I wouldn't read too much into as of yet was another Sporting wingback. Young player, physical, very unrefined, according to Sporting fans. Has only made one appearance at the senior level. But it's good to note that it is on their radar to be looking at these positions, as I've said, even if they're not making a decision to do it as of yet, because they want to see how some of these young guys get on first before they decide whether they're actually going to go make purchases in that area. But part of the main strategy is they want to have senior players and youth players, lots of youth prospects to go along with any senior purchases, so they always have players in there. So if after a while they think, all right, none of these youth players are going to make it at United, we'll move them on, we'll sell, we'll bring in more young players that can potentially break into the team in the future. So that's going to be a constant cycle there to always make sure there are young prospects for the key positions in this team. So, in terms of some new names, and this fits into both kind of categories. The first is Jacquet, the center back at Rennes in France, 20 years old, very good on the ball, very dominant in the air, really viewed as an incredible talent. United been scouting him. Now, I think a lot of teams are scouting him. And again, remember, it's early. And right now, scouting doesn't mean too much. Just means they're looking. But this is a player that potentially could add to the list. He definitely fits the type of center back that they're looking for. Good on the ball for his age. Very aggressive and strong in defending in the aerial duels and winning the ball. He's a player that you could put in the middle. You could put out wide. So definitely one for the future, but also for the now. Kind of like Lenny Yoro. Somebody who you probably could get into the team. But if you had him alongside De Ligt, Yoro, Maguire, Shaw, Jacquet, like Mazraoui, he'd be part of that really good unit that would certainly take over in the future as part of the main center back group. Not saying he wouldn't even start right away, but either way, you'd have senior leadership and things where the pressure wouldn't necessarily be all on him. So that's one of the names that United are scouting. And from his same team is a striker, Miete. I apologize if the name isn't exactly right. Mete, something like that. And viewed, again, very young, 18 years old, raw type of striker, but physical, big, very talented. And you'll recall that I think it was last year I was talking about how United were looking at some strikers in the French League and even in French League 2, and one of them, they got one, they moved another one, went somewhere else. I think West Ham were looking at him. I don't know what actually happened with that. But they've been really keeping an eye on this market for some really top young striker talents. And given that behind Šeško, who's young in himself, we've got Zirkzee. There's a bit of unknowns there. We've got Cheeto at the youth level, Kana Biak out on loan. We're not certain yet, because there's a lot of questions in terms of development, how they're going to turn out, what happens next, at where these players will end up and who's going to be United's maybe backup striker or young striker for the future. And they want to have more of that in the team, and then you have Binkeri at the youth level and otherwise. So there's a lot of options there, but again, we don't have any certainties yet. So clearly keeping their eyes on further names in case it's something we want to revisit in the future, like we were just discussing, and keeping that kind of young, treadmill of talent going where we're always having options that could potentially in the future be the guys. Other name that was mentioned by our good friend Sully over there was Keith Smith. This is a player that people have been clamoring for United to look at. He plays at Alkmaar in the Dutch league. Yes, I've got my doubts because it's the Dutch league. Doesn't matter. Ignore me. It's just my personal bias on my view of Dutch players from that league. Not that there's anything wrong with them, because there's very good ones. We've got De Ligt now from that great Ajax team, and he's doing wonderful. But more like I kind of always will feel I need to see evidence they can do it somewhere else before I think they're ready for the step to United. But he looks incredible. A lot of teams chasing him, big clubs chasing him, viewed as like a really, really top player. Young, just great talent. So team that most big clubs will have their eyes on, including United. Again, one of those more like attacking box-to-box eights, certainly not a sitting six or anything like that. So somebody to add to that kind of that eights list of maybe Bruno replacements in the future, Bruno backups. Now, you have to think about that, and we'll get to it in a second. Where does that leave Kobbie Mainoo? Is it planning for Bruno's departure, or is it planning for the successor to Bruno? And what does that mean for Kobbie? Bit of an unknown, but we'll discuss that in a minute. So those were some of the new names that came out this week, even after we did the video talking. So center back name, midfield name, and then potentially even striker and wing backs. Those are the four positions we talked about. But young players in that striker and wing back position, very, very raw talents there. In terms of Casemiro and Maguire in the future, right? What are we going to need next season? How many players are going to depart? Who are we going to buy? Well, as I've said before, the idea has been floated about keeping Casemiro and Maguire as well. It's certainly been under consideration. There are no direct talks for an extension for Casemiro to extend his contract or anything like that as of yet. There just aren't. There aren't like negotiations ongoing as of this moment in time. And the same for Maguire at this point. In both instances, the club have, I believe, let know, or kind of put it through to agents and such that for it to happen, there would need to be significant cuts in terms of wages. Casemiro on $300,000 a week or so. United could be back in Champions League. They're going to want him down to less than half of that. Requisite to he's not supposed to be the starting player next year, as neither Maguire, if he's to stay. So you're talking, veteran squad player, 125,000, like significantly lower salaries where it's probably worth it. And I'd be happy to keep them both in that for their experience, for bringing them off the bench, for rotating them into games. But they'd have to be happy with that. And there's some reports that Casemiro is not willing to take a big pay cut like that. He can probably still go get a big pay cut somewhere else. I would still, again, lean towards Maguire being more likely to stay than the two of them, because he's English and he probably has a strong desire to stay at United over anywhere. I'm not saying Casemiro doesn't love the club, it isn't happy with Amorim and things, because he quite is, but it's still different when you have a guy like Maguire. So unknown what's going to happen with both as of this time. Too early to call. No negotiations over contracts yet, but the idea has been floated on keeping both. It's certainly been brought up. It's just it's far from a sure thing as to where this is going to play out and what's going to happen with it as of this moment in time. But both would have to accept significant wage cuts. Casemiro more so, since his is significantly higher than Maguire to stay, and maybe he's not so into that at the moment. I would still lean towards Casemiro being very, very likely to leave, and Maguire having maybe a 50-50 chance of staying. Obviously, the little injuries and things, he just got another injury. We'll see how long he's out. That's going to play into United's management, because even in a backup role, even in a a senior leadership role, availability matters, right? It does make a difference. So that's going to still come under consideration as to his future. Then there's Joshua Zirkzee. So I was saying a little earlier in this week that I believe that this would be an opportunity for Zirkzee with the Šeško kind of injury, that get a chance in the team, get going, get a shot, and they might need him. And there's been some reports kind of confirming through this week that they were set down to sit down with him. And following that, there's been some reports that they've told him he cannot leave in January and that he will be staying. I know that United really like him. I know that Amorim actually really likes him. And I know that it's been a bit unfortunate. The injury picked up in preseason, that he didn't get any sort of rhythm to get going. But also, in addition, just the lack of games and things like that goes with it. But, he should be set to see some more minutes and a more meaningful role over the next few weeks in these next upcoming games. I think that Zirkzee has a real opportunity here to nail down a more significant spot in the side. When we talk about playing against these smaller sides where our biggest problem has been we can't hold the ball, we can't keep possession, we can't control the games. Zirkzee is a player that can offer us some control. He can offer us some ability to sit on the ball. He can offer us some ability to build up, to keep it, to progress, to do all those sorts of things. So I think Zirkzee has a serious opportunity here to do something special, not special, but, normal, get into the team and get a spot and help us over these next games. And I hope he gets a chance at it. But it does sound like he is likely to get some sort of run with the team. United don't want to let him go. Obviously, by end of season, it's something that they'll have to consider. Should he not have a regular place and he be looking to go? Do they get somebody of a different profile if he's not the guy that they want? Or do they say, listen, next season we've got Europe, a lot more games. There's going to be time. You just got to be patient and wait it out. They really like him, so we'll see. I think it really depends on between now and January. I think it really depends. Does he get on the pitch a bit more, take his chances? I think he will, and I think he's going to be given that opportunity by the club to do so. I think he's going to be given that opportunity by Amorim to do so, and hopefully that results in, him getting a real chance in the team to do something. So. We'll see, we'll find out over the next few days, weeks, as we come back from this international break, these next 5 to 10 games against these smaller sides, especially. We're going to learn a lot about Zirkzee and his place in this side, frankly, and his place in this team as a whole. We're going to learn a lot. So hopefully, I have hopes for him because I really like Zirkzee. I think his qualities are useful, but seemingly he's been told he'll have some sort of place in this side coming up. Ruben Amorim has talked about that and how these players are not getting necessarily the chances that they deserve at this point in time because it means he has to drop somebody else. And, of course, that leads us into Mainoo, who he specifically talked about, said, he should be playing more. He can be playing more, but it means I have to drop somebody else like Bruno, who I think is playing really well. That's his view. We can agree, disagree, this, that, and the other on it. We have plenty of times, but that's just where we are today. Now, in terms of Kobbie Mainoo, one of the things with the links to like Conor Gallagher and stuff, I do think ties into, would we potentially let Kobbie Mainoo go and bring in someone like Conor Gallagher? Now, I'm not sure that speaks well or that speaks positively towards the future of Kobbie Mainoo, because I know it's been said as it's just like, just wants a loan to come back to the team, doesn't want to leave permanently. But certainly, the club, I wouldn't say have taken like an extremely over-the-top positive view to the idea of, just go out and go on loan for half a season when we need you and then come back. But I'm not sure that if Kobbie were to go on loan that he would come back and be reintegrated as a normal part of the squad, or if they'd take that opportunity and say, all right, we're going to try some other players and we may end up buying players for your position because we don't know what's going to happen and what the future holds and if you'll come back and want to stay or not. So I think it's very risky in terms of Kobbie Mainoo for his future if he's really pushing to go out on loan. And he still is at this point on time, wanting to go out on loan in January. Not to say he won't stay and play and train and things like that if he's here, but he still is pushing for that. So I don't know if I don't know what it speaks to for the future if United do let him go, but there are certainly some signs that they're starting to maybe consider it and look at alternative options and loan options and things like that in the team. So we'll have to see what happens here with this one. But certainly things like Conor Gallagher being looked at are part of the potential story on maybe letting someone like Mainoo go out on loan. And then we'll see what entails after that, because we know that, you know, if Casemiro stays on a cut wage and Bruno stays, what future is there? I don't know. So this is going to, obviously, this Mainoo thing is going to be a subject that rolls on for months and months and months. And I won't go on about it too more, but I think it's perhaps being thought about a little more at United as to whether they will let it happen, even though they definitely don't want to. And they do want to keep him for the future, ideally. But certainly there's a bit of conflict here. The other things to mention here is through the week we heard that Sekou Kone will likely be going out on loan. He hasn't gotten enough, you know, with the injuries and things that he's had. I think the feeling is that he needs to play first-team football, but he's not had enough time. He's not been settled enough. He's not, with the injuries that he's had, he's not, you know, the environment in the first team isn't maybe ready for right now. And that it would be very good for him to go out on loan, play a bunch of first-team football, see where he's at really, so they can make a full assessment in summer, because they just don't feel they've seen enough to know what the future holds for him. And I think he is a very exciting prospect in that respect. Harry Amas doing very well on his loan and likely to stay over at Wednesday for the second half of the season and then be considered at the end of the year for that. So good stuff on this, and I really hope that United do get some more players out on loan from the youth ranks, you know, to get into the future. And I think that would be a good step for some players to get more minutes, get more time, get first-team football. I'd really like to see Kone get out on loan and play a lot. We've seen what it's done for Ahmad and others. So could be more loans in January out. Kone, could it be Mainoo as well? Not sure, but we'll see. So that's it. That's essentially the wrap-up of where things are at through this week in terms of targets, in terms of names. Again, go check out that recruitment video, the update on some new names United are looking at: Casemiro, Bruno, Casemiro, Maguire, I should say, Zirkzee, Mainoo, some young players, loans, quite a bit happening. So that should keep you up to speed. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.